Links to join the channel here on Subscribestar or Patreon. I never really paid too much attention to the YouTube money because there wasn't a whole lot. It just wasn't enough coming in to worry about. And then all of a sudden I looked at it, I'm like, what the hell happened? Where all this money come from? It's like, oh, people join the channel. That's where for small channels, the advertising revenue isn't much. But then the channel memberships, all of a sudden, like the thing can double or triple because of like 2 or 3 people join a channel. It's like, oh, that adds up. It's Never really thought about that before, as I say out loud, I realize how stupid that sounds to not think about that. Anyway, though, thanks for the recent channel memberships here and on Subscribestar. So Elon Musk scares the hell out of these people. Why? Oh, because the plan is to gut Twitter staff by 75%. Now, here's the thing. As they say in the article, they had planned to do this, not 75%, but they said it was overstaffed as was. And the next quarter, they were planning on paring it down anyway, because you had so much content moderation and just, a lot of people there who didn't need to be there. If you're on Twitter, you know how heavily modded it is. There's just no point to it. It doesn't bring value to the product. And I think more people are on board with free speech. They weren't going to do 75%. Whether or not he actually does that or not, who knows? But they were gonna reduce a lot of people, which means like, well, wait a minute. You shouldn't be in a position where you have to reduce like 25% of the staff. Like you never should have got there in the first place. That you let it get too out of whack for too long. It's like what was going on behind the scenes with Twitter, which kind of leads you to wonder like, wait, was it overvalued? It kind of feels like it is. Like how overvalued was it? And then how many bots are there on Twitter? Like there's only one electron in the universe. That's a theory that it just goes back and forward into time to create this present space-time you see before you. How many people are on Twitter? I don't know. I use Gab, and Gab's a slower build at first, but then over like a year, you'll look at Gab over a year and you go like, oh, I have more followers on Gab than I ever would have had on Twitter because I would have been shadow banned by now. And on Gab, you don't get shadow banned; you just keep growing and growing. So it's a whole different vibe. So free speech scares the hell out of the puppet masters, and they say something like, oh, false. Oh, and they also mention prawn. As far as I remember back in my day on Twitter, there's plenty of that stuff on Twitter that was allowed. So I'm not sure why they're using that as their kind of a straw man argument, like offensive content like prawn will be allowed. It's like it's already there. You can see, I think Twitter shows everything. So and then they mentioned false and misinformation, which has been in the news lately with the Jankowicz thing that blew up last year. The thing is, not to get on my philosopher's stone here and ponder my orb, what is the truth and what is a misrepresentation of the truth? In 1984, in America and Europe, and Animal Farm, great books. The truth is absolutely irrelevant. The truth is what the Twitter and Facebook say it is. Who gets to determine it? Well, whoever determines what the truth is and what may be spoken, that person is your absolute master. When the truth is determined by Snopes or by Rothschild's Reuters, it's not the truth. The way they say they never needed fact checkers until people started to realize that the media was lying to us, like for the past forever. The media's always had a bias, but in the past 20 years, they came out and just outright lied. So when the media had the media tell NPCs that they're honest, it's like, wait a minute. These fact checkers are just a media source, right? And you're the media, so you're investigating. You're just having one. I feel like one hand is rubbing the other. I don't trust Snopes any more than I trust CNN. I don't trust either one of them. I've seen the people who work at Snopes. I know they're not trustworthy just based on the way they look. Like you can't judge a book by its cover. Okay, fine. Disregard that. Look at the stories and the presentation and the insane partisan bias on Snopes, on Reuters, on all these other fact checking sites. You ever think it's weird that they're all left-wing biased and go, oh, we're the right-wing fact-checking sites. Oh, they're not allowed on social media. Oh, we're in deep shit, aren't we? Yes, we are. Form organized groups of peaceful assembly. So think of what power you have to call our speech hate speech, but determine that their own speech is truthful speech. Some will call them malicious, whatever. There is no hate speech. There is speech that the globalists hate. Neighborhood watch associations. There's just speech that the globalists hate hearing. Marxists can't survive the open marketplace of ideas because Marxists have ideas that cannot be defended, and they look ridiculous when they get in an open platform and people can have a calm, rational discussion. You go like, okay, let's have this discussion. Do you think you can do it without ad hominems and deflections? Sir, that is a bridge too far. That we cannot do. Okay, well, let's just get your ad hominems out of the way first, and then let's try to address the argument instead of attacking the man. Don't you think it's weird that the media and social media are controlled by far left-wing globalists, and that right-of-center speakers and news sites get kicked off social media? So, in effect, the narrative is totally controlled by left-wing globalist perspectives. Where are the right-wing nationalist voices on social media? I mean, or in representative government? Our democracy, our republic, our constitutional representative republic. It's not a democracy. And you know that it's not a democracy. It's a threat to our republic, you... I wish I could edit these videos and I could just swear and I could get it out and then I could edit them, but there's no editing on this. These are all one take. Where do you edit your videos? What do you use? Dude, obviously there's no editing. This is just a Kindle. So where are the right-wing voices that are as far right on social media, mainstream media, and representative government as there are left-wing voices that are as far left? Where is that equal balance? Oh, it's nowhere to be seen. Well, it's on, I don't know, the Fediverse is some new website system I've heard of. I think Radix Verdue or something. She's talking about that. And then there's like Gab and Telegram and Shing TV and Odyssey. There's all these small sites that are fascinating. Like there's very, very good conversations that are going on these alternative Shing, Odyssey, and there's another site I can't even mention the word because it's a hot word, which is a mistake for him to build a site around that. These great conversations are occurring. I heard a live stream the other night that was on these alt platforms, and it was a far ideologically opposed people who sat down and had a comfortable, reasonable hour-long conversation. It's like, oh, that conversation should really be on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram Live and all these kind of, I don't know, what's the other Pinterest sites, all those live streams. Yeah, that conversation should have been everywhere. It's not. It's on alt media. Yeah, because the mainstream puppet masters don't want you to know that the far left and the far right or these far identitarian groups can sit down and talk and have conversations that are productive. Yeah, that's why they're called, like, the mainstream is controlled ops. The anyone allowed on the mainstream now is going to be controlled ops to allow a limited spectrum of opinion and nothing outside that spectrum. I mean, some are more obvious than others, like Rubin and Shapiro, obviously, but then there's like Crowder and Mark Dice and Paul Joseph Watson, and it's not like those guys are bad actors. But they're in a golden cage, and there's this limited spectrum, and nothing outside that spectrum is allowed. It's like, oh yeah, it's weird. YouTube's this premier platform. It's got 90% of the market value, or I don't know if it's 90%, but it's got the overwhelming majority of dissemination of ideas in this format. It's weird that nobody has made an effort to have constitutional protections apply to this new digital town square where the value of free speech is so valuable, but it's not protected on YouTube. And yeah, and it's weird. Nobody's done anything about that. Just kind of collecting paychecks in Congress and don't do anything about anything. Anyway, so the right-wing nationalist voices are not allowed on social media or anywhere really, or anywhere in the mainstream, because the globalists can't counter their arguments, so they simply censor them. We're not allowed to do this full spectrum of diversity of thought because globalists, gatekeepers, control the means of dissemination of communication. Yeah, we got Gab, Odyssey, Shing, and a bunch of other alt media sites, but our legal representatives are on Twitter, and we're not allowed free speech. And to be fair, most of us are banned off Twitter anyway. You know, IP blocks, device blocks, cell phone blocks. They really don't want us speaking. So we're not. And the thing is, false information and hate-filled attacks. Hate-filled attacks are allowed on social media now, but it's all against one group of people. And I'll give you a hint. They look suspiciously like you and I. You're hazel green and blue-eyed heroes over here. So we're not allowed to engage in the political process because the government is using a backdoor to censor our free speech. So we can't engage with the public and help shape the conversation. Twitter control. It's a private company. Yes, but it is so pervasive in our society, and the value of free speech is such that constitutional protections should apply. It's really hard to not swear because it's the new town square, and we don't. The thing is, it's good that I don't swear because otherwise it would just be a litany of it. And we don't have constitutional protections for it, and we should. Our politicians don't want free speech; they want control. It's if Elon Musk eventually got a hold of Twitter and allowed freer speech, well, what would happen? Oh, you'd hear what people actually think. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I want to hear what people actually think. Commies and Nazis and black identitarians and brown identitarians and all these other groups. I want to hear all that. Let's all get together and have reasonable conversations. Oh, no. You're pawns, and pawns must fight among each other. Yeah, but we don't need to unless we're manipulated. It's the Gina Carano, the red ants and the black ants. Yeah, that's why I wonder about Gina Carano. Is like she really is naive, and I think she might legitimately just be kind of in her own golden cage. Who's shaking the red ants and black ants get along, but who's shaking the jar to get them to fight? Yes, there should be free speech zones on social media. How can we know what good ideas are out there if our masters don't allow us to hear them? Why do we need puppet masters to determine what ideas are allowed for our consumption? Why on earth would we want other people to control us? We're not slaves. We don't need a Jankowicz, determining what words we may speak. Doesn't it seem likely that a Jankowicz will use the power of censorship to advance her and her party's own interests? Just turn it against them. If you said so, okay, if Trump had a ministry of truth, how would you feel about it? You'd lose your freaking mind on it. You would. If one side has the power to control speech and determine truths, they're simply going to censor their political opponents. Do you trust Jankowicz or Zuckerberg to determine what is allowed or what is the capital T truth? Who may be criticized and who you must not criticize? All you have is free speech in the open marketplace of ideas. Otherwise, you're a slave to people who have the power to determine what the truth is. Globalists are terrified that if Twitter has free speech, people will start shining a light on the globalists, which is exactly what we should be doing. A very bright one. Fact checkers who can offer an opinion that doesn't even make sense in the abstract theoretical. What makes one source of data different from any other source? The fact checker is just a guy on a keyboard like everyone else. How is he held accountable to the truth? Will he be fined or imprisoned if he lies? Who will fact check the fact checkers? Jankowicz can fact check Rothschild's Reuters, and oddly enough, they agree with Snopes and CNN. They're all in perfect accord. What a serendipitous coincidence. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support the new computer fund on Subscribe Star, or join the channel if you can. I'll see you guys all next episode.